Welcome to another episode of Charge the Line with your host Roger Narvaez and my co-host Tony Perez. Today I've got one of my brothers, a good friend of mine, somebody I work with on the daily, somebody that also was very close friends with our brother Mark Solis, holding it down at the training division. Today we bring in Captain Homer Sierra of the fire department. Homer, what's going on, brother?
What's going on? Thank you for having me, Roger.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, today I wanted to talk to you a little bit because, being... And we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, so I'm not gonna bullshit y'all. So we're gonna jump around a little bit. We recorded about 20 minutes and then had a little fuck up, but we're back on track now. So, but today's podcast, I want to get a little bit into your background, and then mainly I want to kind of talk to you about changing the culture. I think ever since you promoted to captain, that was something that you were trying to do, whether it was within your own station, whether it was just, working shifts with other crews, or whether now being in the training division, I really think that we've seen a difference in the last, I would say, 2 years since you've been there. So I kind of want to pick your brain about that a little bit, but let's get right down to it, man. So, we had talked about earlier, a lot of times people, know they want to be firefighters. A lot of times people, fall into the job, just luck of the draw type thing. Is that something you always wanted to do, was be a fireman? Did you know that, like, set, as a kid, or was it something that you later on discovered in life?
So 1990 Backdraft came out. I saw that movie, and I think that was it, brother. That I just was like, I want to do that, and now that we're in the fire service, we know a lot of that
is bullshit.
Yeah, we're not fighting fire with no mask on, but it intrigued me. And,
although in 1990, maybe that was,
maybe it was.
It wasn't that. Well, who knows, right?
Yeah, they were riding tailboard for sure.
They were doing that.
Yeah. So that's 1990, and then 13 years later, or however many was it, I joined the fire service, and I always wanted to help people, so. I gotta be honest, I applied for PD and fire.
Yeah.
I graduated from Carroll High School in 2000, played football over there, and liked the camaraderie. I used to work at HEB, and I met some firemen there that gave me some advice about joining the department. And one of them, JD Aranda, was an instructor for Del Mar College, and said, hey, there's a fire program, EMT paramedic program, we see here all the time. Have you thought about your future? And I said, I always want to be a fireman. I just don't want, how do I go about it? And he explained to me what they had over there. So I couldn't do the fire part because it was basically I couldn't work. So I went to the paramedic side, and he said, if you can get to paramedic, you can get to the fire. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, because a lot of people, so you hadn't talked about that earlier, but a lot of people go through the fire first, because you can get your cert, and then your EMT basic's only like 6 months, and you get your basic, and then you can pretty much start working at a fire department anywhere, like volunteer. I know, like ESD, Portland, all refineries, they'll hire you. But you didn't take that route. You went the paramedic route.
Yes, I was working full-time for HEB. I was working overnight, so I went to classes during the day, had a 3 or 4 hour break, went to classes at night, and then would go work overnight. I did that for 2 years. And during the 2-year period at 19, I didn't do so well in the interviews for PD or fire. So I never interviewed before, I should have talked to people. I didn't even know who the fire chief was, didn't know who the police chief was. I just went in there and thought, like, well, how hard can this be? And it was tough. I just had blue jeans on and basically a polo shirt because I couldn't afford much. So they gave me some advice and said, if you really want to come back, this is how you dress, look into the department, learn how to answer questions. And so I came back 2 years later at 21, both interviews, kick butt in both of them. Didn't have a suit, but I had a tie on, I had slacks. And
right.
Said, hey, everything's, consistent. I have the same job, about to be a daddy. I said, I just finished
why did you skip that year? Because you went back 2 years later. Did they not have an opening?
That was when they used to do it. It's only been the last 10 years or so.
Yeah. Every year.
It used to be hit or miss,
So I was like, all right, well, I'll just continue the paramedic program. So told them this is what I want to do, and of course they knew I applied for PD also. But I said, I need I'm about to have a son. I would like to be, the fire is my first option, but I got to have a backup plan for my family. And luckily, the second time around, I guess I did good enough that I got hired. So that was a blessing. Then I had to call PD and tell them,
fuck y'all, I'm like, y'all suck.
Yeah, pretty much.
My cousin's a cop. What's funny is my cousin actually is the one that told me to apply to the fire department. He didn't try to get me to join the the boys in blue. He never told me why.
He grew up with you. That's why.
He never told me why. Yeah, he probably knew. He's like, no, you'll get fired if you come with us. You're definitely an HR nightmare.
But yeah, so I got in at 21 years old in 2003, and I ain't going in. I'm gonna put in 40 years. I ain't going anywhere. We got 21 down, 19 to go, and
kicking and screaming.
The department made me. I was a young man, green. New daddy. Didn't have, like Chief was saying, he had his dad growing up, helping him out. Like I didn't have those experiences, so never touched a saw, never climbed a ladder, never rappelled, never been on the roof. I never cut a yard. We always we rented, and people took care of that stuff for us. So, and when I say I didn't know nothing, other than all I could say is like I'm practically a medic. That's all I had, which was a huge plus.
Right.
But all the regular skills, checking oil, changing a weed, I could not. I needed a lot of help with that part. So I grew up in the department.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's unique about our department is that happens for a lot of us. I mean, I was 24. I had worked at a pawn shop. I had done a job as a stalker, but I never really did anything like you said, like weed eating, cutting the yard. Like my dad never showed me. I'm still learning things. Shit, Carl Chisholm over there at 13 was trying to show me how to change a spark plug in a lawnmower. I'm like, I'll just pay somebody like you to do that for me because I ain't gonna learn that. But yeah, man, that's the thing. Having those life skills and life tools, I think that some people may take for granted. It can be a struggle, for a lot of the guys, and that's something we try to do in the academy. Is like, hey, we actually take them and have Ray at the shop actually go over like how to fuel a weed eater, how to change the bar on
how to check it out,
how to check out a chainsaw, how to change the blades on it, how to maintenance it, and those are things that I think some people might take for granted that everybody should know, but the reality is, I mean, unless you grew up around that stuff, like
we were actually talking about it yesterday. One of the cool things about the department is, and you guys are seeing the academies come in now and taking a look at all the cadets, and you get a big it's a diverse group, right? You got like college graduates, you got like firefighters that I've met, some like geniuses, mathematicians, a guy that retired and now was a math professor. I mean, really, really intelligent people, and not so intelligent people, but they have like common sense, street smarts,
right.
And that's kind of one of the things, like with our job, is like problem solving, right? And so when you put 4 people on a fire truck and they come up to a problem, one of them's in charge, but between the 4 of them, we usually can figure it out. Well,
right.
we always figure it out, right? One way or another. And that's what's so cool about it. I've met some of the smartest people that that you could know in the fire department.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, you got people from all walks of life with all kinds of skills and skill sets. And I think as a captain, unfortunately, I haven't had that opportunity yet, but I'm sure you can vouch for this, both you guys. When you're an officer and you have a crew, you want to use what you have, right? You want to tap into everybody's skill sets and really allow them to kind of pitch in that way. I think that is probably a good way to get buy-in as well, right? Like instead of you coming in there acting like you know everything, sometimes it says a lot about your character if you're able to ask a subordinate like, hey man, show me this, or show me, tell me how to do this, or whatever the case may be. With you being a captain, I know you did how many years? You did 11, 12 years, you said, before you decided to test?
Yes.
And when you first started out, obviously, like, you were probably just happy to be a fireman. At what point did you decide, like, man, I can take that next step? I really feel like I need to do something to further myself.
Well, luckily, as a rookie, I went to Station 8 with the great Captain Tim Smith. I was there for a year, and something that got me when he said, come back and work with us. He didn't say come and work for me. He said, if you make 2, come back and work with us. And it was Juan Rodriguez was there, Frank Montoya, Carl Chisholm, Chris De Leon was there, and they had a good crew. Steve De Leon was his driver. or Steve Bainey, I'm sorry, was his driver. And man, is just when someone says come work for me, and someone says, you know, come work with us, be part of the team. It just, I was like, I'm gonna come back.
You wanted to be a part of that.
That's the team I want to be a part of. And so I left for a few months, made 2, and went back to that station. And just, it was fun. I was young, having a great time, you know, coaching little league, travel football, travel baseball. I wasn't ready to promote, but
Well, you had great leadership too there, right?
Yes,
like
that's
I
the
think
game changer.
sometimes that's the hard part is like when you have somebody that's such a good leader, you don't necessarily want to go off on your own because you're comfortable, right?
it's funny you say that. So yeah, I had a great leader, great crew, and slowly, of course, people started promoting. You know, Carl Chisholm made driver, Juan Rodriguez made driver, Captain Tim Smith ends up leaving to a new station, and some new blood comes in, and the dynamics of the station changed, and it wasn't, you went from a captain that was like, cleaning restrooms with you, and don't start the yard without me. You better not. I'll be right there running to the trucks. I better not beat you. And if you beat Tim, he's like, I was in the restroom. That's the only reason you beat me. And I'm like, let's just get out of here.
He made it fun.
It was a competition with Tim Smith, to be the best. And the crew changed, and all that camaraderie kind of wasn't there anymore. And then I used to love coming to work. Primo Troy would be like 30 calls a day, because remember back then they would send a list every month of the, and engine Medicaid and medic team were neck and neck, and if we would beat them by 2. We'd call station 10. Hey, y'all need to pick it up. It's 2 calls. I'm like, yeah, man, it's 2 calls too many. And that was the thing, and it was fun. I didn't care how busy we were. It was fun. There was nights we left and backing up, and the sun's coming up, and Frank Montoya's like, man, I've never seen the sun come up with another man. And I was like, man, we're just out all night, and when that dynamic changes, I just wasn't having fun anymore. I was still doing my job to the best of my ability, but it was just kind of like, it was just different.
But was that like a motivating factor for you to start promoting at that point?
Yes. When you had someone that was here and somebody else came in, it was just kind of, this is where I'm at here, just a different style. And I didn't agree with that. And I felt like, and had some few rough fires over there with Austria Longoria, and it was like, man, I can do this. And I know I could do it better than, not everybody, but there's some. And so after Chief Willis had approached me and said, hey, like, you need to promote. It's time. You're doing great acting. Had some good acting fires as acting captain, and supplied at some fires. And he's like, take any test, but time to promote, son. And so that's probably the best advice he had given me, because I was young, and I didn't want to promote too soon because I didn't know anything. I wanted to get the experiences, so I didn't promote till like 11 years in. When I felt confident, when I promoted, I was confident that I could do the job. It wasn't just because I've been in 5 years. There's an opening. I was like, I am not ready to lead men and women into battle. Like, I'm still young.
I love the way you say that, man, because that's what it is. I mean, and we're going into battle. We're fighting that fire, and I think that me and you have something that is in common, in the fact that I did 17 years before I promoted, and a big part of that was because I didn't feel. Now, through some of that time, I was a little complacent, and I probably wasn't the best that I should have been. But there was also a point in time where I was like, I'm not comfortable with like having somebody's lives in my hands. Like, I'm comfortable with somebody telling me what to do, and I know I can get the job done. But I'm not ready to go into that fire and direct and manage people. And if something bad happens, take the full responsibility of that event. And I think, unfortunately, there are people that promote for a couple of reasons. One is they just get miserable with the ambulance, and and that's why we try to preach to the cadets, like, understand what you're getting into. Like, nobody came knocking at your door, nobody came begging for you to join. Like, you wanted this job, and being a paramedic is part of it, and riding that ambulance is exactly what you're going to do. The other part of that is, pay. People always, oh, I'm going to make more, or whatever the case. And if those are your 2 reasons to promote, we've talked about it before here on the podcast, it's like, that's absolutely not the right reason. Because when it comes down to it, and I have to look somebody's wife or kids in the eye and say, I fucked up, and that's why your dad or your husband's not here. Like, until I felt I had enough knowledge, I had enough experience, I had enough um, um, managing, enough experience managing situations in a fire. That's when I wanted to promote, and that's what I did. So, I respect the fact that you did 12 years. And I know there's a lot of people that bitch, right? They're like, well, guys promote too fast and this and that. And the fact of the matter is, there's some guys, like Tonya said, there's some guys that can promote after 5-6 years and be really great. But then again, there's other guys that it takes a little bit longer for. And, unfortunately, because the way our system is set up, they can promote like that. They do, and you can't really fault them for it. But I always encourage everybody, make sure you know what you're doing when you do take that promotion, because that's a lot of responsibility. It really is.
And a lot of times there's a feeling where you may not. I mean, I don't think that anyone goes into that and says like, man, I've seen it all, I've done it all, I know it all. That's never, as you guys know, that's never the case. It's like putting yourself in those positions where you're a little uncomfortable, where you're gonna have to like, man, how are we gonna figure this out? I haven't seen that before, or I haven't seen that before, and then you get those little W's, by going through those, big calls, big events. People tell you, hey, you did good, or hey, you really should have thought about doing this.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I got it.
That's when you say that'll never happen again.
Yeah. And you learn from it, right? And so it's like, the beautiful thing about the job is that there's no day, every day is different, but you could like do the same things all the time, or you could like just, continue to progress. And I think that's a lot of what you guys, both of you, have made it a priority in your careers to like grow and be better, right? And
well, something that I've learned, because I me and Homer played football way back in the day. You graduated what, 2000?
2000.
Yeah. See, I was 02, so we would practice together and stuff. But he was varsity, I was JV, and it wasn't through the department, like we'd known each other and stuff, but I hadn't really worked with him real closely up until recently. And one thing I can say is like this dude, one thing I've learned and I've gained a respect for is that if something happens or somebody fucks up, like the responsibility he takes for it is like, I mean, hey, it's my fault. It may not have been his fault, but if it was under his watch, it's his fault, and to have that humility is super important as a captain, and humbleness, because, man, sorry guys, you can hear that dog.
And it's that ownership, right? Like taking ownership. Like if it's you're responsible for things, and sometimes it's out of your control, but by acknowledging it and saying like, I'm not gonna make sure that doesn't happen again. That's huge,
You take it so personal. We lost a cadet for drinking and driving, and it really bothered me because I felt like I instilled enough. Call me, don't make the mistake. We all make them. I'm here.
Y'all had those conversations with all these classes. You tell them, because
we tell him when I first got there, every single Friday, he would tell them, if you guys need something, call me, call an Uber. He's like, I won't bitch. You might get an earful from me, but it's better than getting a DWI. And we made ourselves available. He made himself available, which made me want to make myself available in that way, But, that's something that I think some people may struggle with, is taking that accountability. And it's always, and you don't grow, right? You're not going to grow if you're constantly pointing fingers at other people, or, well, they said this, or they told me to do that, and there's been instances where it's not his fault. And shit happens, and whether it's a cadet's fault, or whether it's another firefighter's fault, or whether somebody else drops the ball and he's like, nope, so I'm responsible, and so that showed me a lot just in the last several months being there, because I'm always looking at people and how they lead, and what you said was like, there's good and there's bad, right? So, and you say it all the time. You take from the good, and then you take from the bad, but you don't do the bad. You take what not to do from them.
You develop your own style, right? You can learn from good and bad, and you learn the bad. You learn like, I'm not doing that way. You see that didn't work, right? So it's very clear sometimes, and similar to what you said when you were at a station where you were like, no, I don't like this dynamic. This is not that you can't learn stuff there, but you're not going to progress at the rate that you want. That's you made a change. Same thing happened to me, man. We had a whole at the same station. We had the whole shift. The whole crew.
I remember.
Yeah, the whole crew gone. New captain, new driver. Those two were fighting all the time, and it was like
Not fun no more.
yeah, this is bad. And I'll tell you the day. I can remember the day. I can remember the fire. I can remember the street that the decision was made where I called the BC and was like, I need to move and I want to go to Station 10. And it was because it was other crews that were looking at us and I could see them talking and they were talking about us.
Yeah.
And not
Yeah,
necessarily me specifically, but it was
guilty
like,
by association.
well, yeah.
And you
it
take
was
pride in that when somebody says something.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
one of them actually pulled me aside and it's like, hey, you know, we were trying to do an assignment. The captain had me doing something that was totally never going to work. And I told him no, like we're not doing that. And it was a guy, one of the captains.
Insubordination.
Yeah, it was a captain on Rescue 3 that pulled me aside at the time and was like, hey, did he tell you to, you know, he wanted me to hold a fan up at a window and hold it, right? It's like, that's not going to work. Like, it's not, you know. And so.
I mean, you're strong, bro, but.
No. Yeah. I mean, but, you know, just the dynamics of what he was trying to accomplish, like, wasn't going to work. And so, you know, I was telling him that's not going to work, and I kind of walked away. And then the captain pulled me aside and said, "Hey, was he telling you to hold that fan?" And I said, "That's exactly what he told me." He's like, "All right. So when later on we're going to be making fun of him, but we'll make sure to not include
you in that."
And I was like, I cannot be associated with this clusterfuck, right?
Yeah.
And so I called that. We were leaving the scene, and I think there was no, we didn't text message as much back then, but it was like a phone call called, you know, Unit 2 or whatever. It's like, I want to go to Station 10. It's like, hey, there's an opening. We'll put you there, you know?
Yeah.
And
well, it's funny because in that crew resource management book, it talks about sometimes when, and this is, I think it's a harder thing when it's the leadership, right? Because when their leadership's failing and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, then you have a couple options. But one of the options that they gave was to leave. And it was actually the guy that wrote the book was like, the department was changing. It was going down a path I didn't agree on. And he said, so I retired and I went and started my own company doing something other.
Those are hard decisions, you know. You never know the future, but you know yourself and you know where you want to be, right? And so you gotta cut that path to get to where you want to be. So, you know, in training, it's like you guys have an idea, a vision of what you're trying to do, and like I've noticed a difference. You know, I noticed a difference on what's going on, what the way that things are going. So, I mean,
well, and that's definitely something I want to talk about in a second for sure. Because like I said, everybody's, you know, texting me and telling me all this stuff, and I'm like, man, you know, he's the one that started it.
Yeah.
You know, he's the one that led the charge, and I started noticing for a while, right? And you know, I noticed it when I was there for the captain's orientation. You know, and he was leading the way, but you know, before we get there, and both of you guys have probably experienced this, is and I know both of you have, but you know, you newly promoted captain, gung ho, ready to fucking go, ready to change the world, right? And you get to a station and you got a bunch of veterans there that aren't used to doing things the way that, for lack of better terms, they're just not the way you're doing things, right? How hard was that to adjust to, or how hard was that to come in and start navigating those waters and really making a difference there? Because once again, if you don't have buy-in with your crew, you don't have nothing, right?
So it was rough. Of course, we're changing the culture and how we do the officers class. But my orientation was a week of instructor 1, fire officer 1, and then get to the trucks. There wasn't a whole lot of like how, because now we have a whole week of strategy and tactics. Yeah. You know, we do a little driver class now. That really, back then, it wasn't instilled. It was just get these 2 certs and then you're on the truck. So there wasn't a whole lot of, and sometimes the people who were teaching the classes didn't have the credibility of the field, you know. So I went in there guns blazing to my station and thinking like, this is where we're gonna be, and it was a lot of growing pains. It was rough, and if I can go back, I would have. It was a difficult time. Honestly, when I promoted that first year, we had a lot of fires. I got there and my driver was like, you know, 25-year driver or whatever, was like, nothing's gonna burn here, dude. Like, once a year we have a fire, you're gonna hate it here. So it was kind of a little bit of negativity. Like I said, well, you know, I'm just glad, you know, that I'm here. And had the senior guys. I think I was probably the youngest one there with the least amount of time. And they were kind of had the same captain for like 10 years. So that was a very tight knit crew. And then here I come, and they were just like, I'm like, no, man, like
you ain't changing shit about the way.
And so I went in there kind of like with an iron fist. This is how it's gonna be. And they were like, what? Like, no, man, like it doesn't work like that here. So I tried to sit back and like I had no patience. I don't have any patience. So I was like, not doing station day like this. This is how we're gonna do truck day. We need to get out of here. We're going to start doing turnout times. And I kind of started with the basics, and maybe I offended people and I didn't mean to. But just, if I'm waiting for you to get bunkered out and I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, come on. And it was just the mentality. I should have gone under with a little more patience and then size up the crew, find out my strengths, my weaknesses, and instead I went in there and expected this is where we're going to be at, and it doesn't work like that, So I tried to instill that in the officer's orientation that don't go in there guns blazing. You got to get to know everybody. And it actually took my driver, Chris Ramirez, put me aside. Was like, hey man, like, we understand what you're trying to do and we respect that, but it's too much right now. We were 10 years with a certain person, and we're kind of stuck in our ways and all this training. And he was like, we have all these fires and we had some bad fires over there, and I didn't know how to deal with that stuff. It was just like, all right, just get back to work. And at that time, I still wasn't real good at the CISM stuff. It's our job, And he was just like, we need time out, dude. Like, we've had a lot of fires here. He's like, Chris Ramirez was like, we had pumped like, I don't know how many hours at a fire in Annabelle. We lost 2 kids, and we were just all tired. I remember Captain Wood came up to me, and I had just got to 9s, and it was a mess that first year. And Captain Wood came up to me, and I didn't know what he was going to tell me. We had just pulled that little boy, and he was like, you were there, Chief. You were on Rescue 3, I believe. We were up there, and I don't know what I thought he was gonna say, but Kevin was like, I don't know what you brought over here, son, but you brought hell over here. It's been horrible since you got here. And I'm like, oh, okay, Kevin, I'm sorry, man.
Like that's not the word reassuring.
I was like,
and then Captain Wood is like, super respected. So that's got to be hard to take.
I learned a lot that year. Yeah. With crew resource management. Just the amount of fires we had, I got more comfortable on the radio because we didn't now we put our guys through fly fire with radios, and we didn't do that. And so I was like, this is a new officer who wrote the box a lot. I was on Medic 14 the last year before I made, so I didn't I acted at fires, but it's different. I was like, they're like, well, what could you take from orientation? I'm like, could we have done live fire with radios? And they're like, how long you been in now? You should know by now. And I'm like, well, it's different.
Yeah, totally different.
And so it was some growing pains. And so now I try and still have a little patience, get to know your crew, find out, where everyone's at and what their, strengths and weaknesses are before you go in there and say, I'm here, I'm ruling this station with an iron fist. It is what it is, and you better keep up. Because I remember they would say, we can't keep up with you. They would say, you need to slow down. I said, no, y'all need to speed it up.
Right.
But there could have been a better way of going about that. And so it took driver who'd been in a lot longer than me to say, we need to slow down, pump the brakes, dude. Like, we got you.
And we talk about that, right? Because we talk about the driver kind of being the mouthpiece of the station as far as between the crew and the mediator of sorts.
I could tell when I got there who ran the station, and it was Chrissy Ramirez.
He ran the chow and the station.
He stole the chow shit. But yeah, but that takes a lot for you to sit back. I mean, was it at that moment that you realized, like, man, maybe I am full throttle a little too much. Maybe I need to back off.
Yes, and it was rough. I got there with 2 senior captains, and one of the captains we just we could not get along. So I'm like this new captain, and thinking this guy's gonna give me the best advice, and instead he's just like, basically, this is my station, and you ain't doing shit over here,
Yeah.
And so I took it personal and was like, watch me, like
you took it like a challenge.
I was trying like, man, we still got flat lays, we have 2 fogs, like. There's Clevelands. I don't know if you know. There's Clevelands out there, and I made the mistake of like, I'm just gonna put one on there. And then that created problems. So I learned how to go to the proper channels and not just say, well, I'm going to do it and what are you going to do about it?
Oh, there's been plenty of that, right?
So there was better ways to go about it, and it's just
you have to look at when you're trying to accomplish something. It's like, how do you go about to get for the outcome to be what you want? It may not be the direct line, and sometimes it's our responses and how we respond to things can get us the outcome we want. And at the end of the day, if it's like, being humble with that captain is like, okay, you're the station captain. This is what I want to do, from another shift, because by doing it the other way, it's like they're not even gonna ever hear you. You know, you're
And
never gonna.
it creates that dissension.
Right. It's
amongst
almost
the-
because now, like, it's gonna be like, we're not gonna do that, and then you don't get what you want. You don't get what you're trying to accomplish.
It was even worse. You know, I get there with a crew that's been tight for years before I got there. We're used to doing things a certain way, and then I get there, and then there's controversy between the shifts, and I'm like, and honestly, you know, when I promoted that first year, it was like, this wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. It was a lot of managerial issues,
personnel
issues, arguing,
and that's something to give to these captains orientation guys. Is this is not a, you know, the operations part of it is like a small part. It's going to be your day-to-day dealing with your.
Well, I think that's something that we're still tweaking it. And he's definitely, you know, led the way as far as changing some things. But I think that's something that we can still add to it is getting captain. I mean, realistically, like, our captains have to know how to manage people, how to talk to people. And quite frankly, there's some guys that get that gold badge and they just start throwing their weight around and they don't talk to people right. Like, you can tell, like, you've never worked in customer service, like, ever before, you know. This is not how you manage people. It's not just about managing a crew. It's managing the different personalities within that crew that I think is probably the most difficult part of it. You know, but you know, you were on the trucks for several years, and then you decided to go to the training division. I know you had some stuff going on in your personal life, and it just made it a little easier for you to have the schedule that you have now.
Before you go to the training, I want to talk about, like, some successes in that. Like, you obviously learned, like, about, you know, getting the most potential out of your crew, because that crew turned around.
Yes, it took about a year.
They turned around, and it was like to where they were showing up and ready to work, and it was like, this is different. Because I was at 5s and then at 3s, so I was like hand in hand with those. Like, we were a lot of calls together. We made a lot of calls.
I remember you guys showing up, and I'd say, we put the fire out, and they're like, man, we're used to coming over here and mopping, you know, taking care of business, and we go back and
I'll tell you, the biggest one was that because if we were going like west, or we were going northwest, right? Turnout time, because 5s would be getting on 37 before 9s.
Yeah,
9s at navigation, 5s is at Nueces Bay, you know.
Right.
Or 3s, you know, we'd be coming up on them. It was like they never, like, we beat them into that, and then it was where, like, when Homer was there, it was like, oh, they're fast now. They're getting to where.
Jim would get on the radio and say, engine 5, why don't you pull into through quarter? And I say, engine 9's pulling up, and he's like, engine 9 pull into through quarter.
Yeah, because we just automatically it was and some of it, they had an older truck for a little while, but that's that you know, because one of the shifts was like, oh, we don't go code on the freeways, like, because of the truck, but. You know, the turnout time was what they changed the culture over time.
The dynamics of culture. It took about a year, but eventually, after some good fires and like, so some of the mistakes I made was, like, some of the guys had never had a good deep seated fire, and so there was a lot of, like, here's take the nozzle, and I'm like, why are you hesitating? What's your effing problem? You know, get your ass in there. And I shouldn't have been like that, but.
Well, that's because you had an aggressive captain, right? Like Tim was.
That's what Tim said. That was
pushing you.
Yes, sir. You know? Yes, sir. Tim was on your back, and then to have people like, well, you know, it's hot in here. Like, I know, go. And I should have sat down with the crew and said, hey, what have you done? Where have you been? Have you been in a deep seated fire? Have you breathed in hot air? You know, have you ever had blisters? And I just kind of got there and were like, hey, we're all firefighters, we're all medics. It's on. And I do regret that, because there was some good fires with the guys that were like. You know, certain people, hey man, that's the hottest fire I've ever been in. Sorry, and I'm like, I never thought to ask, like, what have you done? I just, let's go. And they're
and when you have a captain that is confident and he reassures you that it's okay, it changes things. Because I know I had a fire, and it was a newer captain, and you know, he's not with our department anymore, but you know, that was the hottest fire I'd been in. It was scary. I mean, to this day, I remember the feeling. It's like, you're flowing and it's getting hotter and hotter. You can't see the fire. You hear it crackling around you, but you still can't see it. It's just black, and it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And so he, you know, I was like, I can't go anymore. And he tells me, he goes, you want to back out? That's what he asked me. Like, he didn't tell me, like,
that's the wrong question.
Yeah. He goes, you want to back out? And I was like, yeah, I can't. And then to this day, it pisses me off, because we backed out. And then somebody picked up our hose line and went and put it out, you know, and that's a lesson that I learned.
It was me.
It wasn't Homer, but yes,
on
that-
Park Street,
it-
booked
yeah,
up
yeah,
another fire.
Yeah, that was
where we-
another one. You know, and it's just one of those things where when you have that captain that has that experience and that's been in the shit, it gives you that confidence as a tailboard, to know, okay, I'm okay. Because realistically, like that's what you, when you're new, like you're depending on your captain, right? And if he asks you and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm fucking hot and I'm feeling this through my gloves.
Well, and you know what he could do later when it all comes down is like, why don't y'all? Well, Roger had to back out, and then he puts it on you,
And then,
which
yeah.
is the opposite of what we're saying, is taking that accountability. It's like, hey,
Right.
I pulled him out because it was too hot or whatever.
Yeah.
So
And I
people
think-
are always looking for an excuse to.
And I think when I got there, I should have told him, look, I've been at two. I was here. I was at 5-6 years at eights. I went to the island, got experience on an aerial, had grass fires. I mean, big grass fires. I went to 14s. Like, I acted for years at Station 8. I should have given a little more history on me, it just, man, I got there and it was hot, like fire after fire. And so we're going through all this. I'm a new officer and we're still getting to know each other. I had, one brother say, don't ever ask me to pull 2.5 because I cannot, I'm too small to do it. So, you have to be with me, because I would I'll get my 360, hey, pull this. And so I got to know, okay, with this person, I got to be with him the whole time. Yeah. This person here, tell me what you want, tell me what to do, how to do, when to do it. And then I had another guy was squared away. Mike Macias, man, he was squared away. I didn't have to, I want this done. So you have to get to know your crews and know who you can, and you know what I'm saying? And I didn't do that. We just got there and we got to work. And I should have told him, like, I feel confident. I acted for years. I had good fires. Before when I had a big old fire on, I can't remember what street it was, but it was a 2-story. There's a picture of it, threes fire coming out of the second floor.
Oh, I was there.
Captain McLeod was he was driving for me. That was like one of my last fire. We pulled a 2.5.
It was just before you made.
I should have told the guys, like, I don't have the greatest experience, but I promise you, I've been in the trenches as an acting captain in a territory that wasn't even mine, with guys that I really don't work with. And I should have given them a little more comfortable instead. They're like, man, I'm like, go advance. Like, are you sure? I'm like, don't, just go. Because we didn't know each other that way. And It took about a year or so before we were just in sync. And then it became like, we got to go. Let's go, Captain. And they were telling me to hurry up. And I'm like, man. And
that's when you start to see the change.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
That's when you start to see the change. And that's something that I feel fortunate about being in the position that I'm in now with you at training is we have a whole new regime there, right? Before, like you said, we had a couple people that were kind of on their way out, and I think that those spots for a long time were kind of where people went to kind of sail off in the sunset and go out to pasture and retire and stuff, and training is not where that should be, and now we have that. And one of our mottos now is be the change, right? Be the change, because we're telling these guys that go out, whether you're a rookie or not, it shouldn't affect your work ethic. It shouldn't affect your training. It shouldn't, if you see somebody else that's not doing it, you still can do it. It doesn't matter how long somebody's been in, because the fact of the matter is, you got guys that have been in 20 years that ain't done shit in 20 years, and
it's all about what have you done lately.
Yeah, and that's something you preach all the time, and so getting into the training division, I'm sure that was kind of like, for you at the time, that had to be like a shell shock of sorts.
It's like when I decided to promote, it was for a reason, right? I wasn't happy with the crew. Not that I wasn't happy with the crew, but I lost the dynamics, and then I made Capt. I wanted to make a change. In my officer orientation, they asked everybody, why did you promote? Most of the class said, there was 10 of us, I hate the ambulance. And I was like, I want to make a change. Like, I want to lead. I feel like, it's hard to do it just being an acting captain. And so this is why I'm promoting. The box, it is what it is, And so then Captain, 5-6 years, I started acting battalion chief for a couple of years. Like, man, I like this because now I have control of an entire battalion. And now I can tell the guys, we're training today. I'm acting chief today. You don't have another plan? Well, guess what? And then I was like, okay, now I can make more change if I promote. Right? I took a battalion chief, went to the assessment center, and was like, all right, I can do this, but I need more time and more experience. And then, toward the end, the cadets coming through, they would, Station 7 kind of, for some reason, we would get the younger ones, and we train them and start all over again. And I was like, why are they so green when they come out here? And I didn't have a problem training them, but it was like, we get them good, a good one. And then, okay, next one. And we got another one for you. And the guy's like, man, we got to start over again. Why are they so? And so it was kind of really, I was really thinking like, you know, I wouldn't mind going to training if I could get there. I just didn't want to leave the trucks. And, you know, eventually had to leave for personal reasons. But it just, toward the end, honestly, I wasn't having fun anymore as an officer. It was just, I needed to change. It's been 7 years in the field as an officer. Had, for whatever reason, call it good luck, bad luck, had some bad fires and burned some stuff down, saved some houses, saved some people, lost some people. And then toward the end, I was like, man, I just wasn't having fun, honestly. And so that position opened up, and that's where I realized that this is where it's the most impact is going to be the training division. That because they don't know anything.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because I you know, like your sphere of influence, right? The higher up you go, your sphere of influence gets bigger, right? Whether you're a firefighter 1, then you go to 2, now you start acting. If you're a driver, you know, you're teaching these new guys about the pump ops and the engine, and you know, you can make a change there. But in reality, like when I got the position, I said, this was something that I wanted. I wanted to make captain so I can make a change and kind of change the culture and set a new standard from what I feel like, you know, we had maybe gotten to a point where the standard, not necessarily that it got lowered, but it just wasn't being raised, right? And in training, we have a direct impact on what we expect out of 20 to 30 cadets every single class. And if we can influence them in such a way where they go out there and now they're impacting the veterans to want to do more, to train harder, to work harder, because I mean, let's face it, there's gonna be some guys, they'll see somebody working and they'll just let them keep working, but there's gonna be those other guys that get convicted and they say, shit, this guy's just came out and he knows more shit than I do. Yes. Or he's out there training all the time or asking questions, and what am I doing, you know?
And I think that's what got me to, you know, it was hard. That was a tough one. Leaving the trucks, I'm not a very emotional person, but having to say goodbye, like, do I really want to leave? This is my station. This is my house. Like,
it's a decision that feels so permanent, right? Like, you're leaving the trucks, like you're not going to come back.
I had anxiety. I just didn't know what to do, and I thought, what if the station goes, you know, what if I have a reputation and they know, like, I'm going to be first in with my territory. I always wanted the feeling that when I showed up, my crew, no matter where I was at, that the chiefs were going to say, okay, we're good. And not like, oh man, you know, I wanted that reputation that I'm here. What do you need? I'm going to get it done no matter what. And so I felt like I was letting the department down. But toward the end, some of the after actions, you might have been in some of them, chiefs, some of the critiques we had, I was emotional and upset and like, why is this happening? Why did we do this? And it was like, man. And then getting phone calls like, hey, you got to chill out during the critiques. And I'm like, I don't want to. It's like, well, you know, you're offending people. You come across as abrasive. I heard that I don't know how many times. And I said, well, I don't mean to, but I'm passionate about this stuff and I want answers from y'all. And I want to hold people accountable. And Doug Matthews just called me and was like, you'd be a good fit over here. You know, all that you have going on, you know, bring it over here when they're young and they don't know anything, they don't know any better, and set the tone for, you know, future classes. And it was tough leaving, man. Like, I almost called Doug. I worked overtime my last shift and then went to training. I was late. I caught one more overtime shift in Station 1, and even then I was like, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know if I can leave. Who am I if I leave the training? Who am I if I leave Ladder 7? You know, officer there for 5 years. And when I came over here, I found out very quickly, like, no, this is where it starts.
Yeah.
Where you set the tone. You know, it's like, I made it clear, this is the department standard, right? You're gonna get this, sir. You're gonna get that. This is gonna be this training division standard. This is when you leave. This is where it's gonna be. This is where the fire department
minimum
wants.
standards,
right?
You want to be above that.
So
well, and I think the hardest part about implementing change and changing the culture is changing the culture isn't something that happens overnight. And for guys like me and you, it's hard because I'm sure we want that to happen overnight. And it's you got to be patient. You know, you got to be patient when you're working through those motions. And even now, we're trying to change certain things about our program. And you know, we hear it from Chief Bellew all the time. He's like, just, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. And it's like, man, I wish we could snap our fingers. It's like, why can't we just make this happen? But once again, we get back to, well, when you're changing things, you can't just go and change everything, which a perfect example is our current chief and the way he did things. He didn't come in instantly after the first month and start changing stuff. He waited a good 6 months and saw the way we operated and let us do things the way that we normally do things. And then he said, okay, I've given y'all an opportunity to do things the way you do things. There's some big gaps and big holes that I feel we can fix. And so now we're going to do it my way. And I think that's helped us because we have the backing of him to be able to push the boundaries a little bit further, to push the, I don't know where it got lost with that, training and being physically fit and things like that aren't important, because they are, and we have a great department. We've got plenty of guys that train and do things the right way, but we can definitely up those numbers, right? We can up those numbers to where now the guys that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing are the minority and not the majority, right? So, it's not easy, but it's something that is definitely needed, and it's something that's appreciated. I think sometimes people are afraid of change. They don't like it initially, but once they start to see the impact of it, that's when they start buying into it, and that's when they start accepting it, and then not only accepting it but actually pushing forward with it, right? I mean, you're a chief. I mean, how do you feel as far as that goes, as far as like really trying to implement a change and seeing people pick up on it and not just fighting, where you're beating your head against the wall trying to get people to do things? I mean,
it's human nature, right, to not like change, and that's a lot of what we deal with. And the other part about it, that it doesn't happen overnight. You've said that, but the other part is that it's hard to measure, right? There's not an exam or a test or a survey that we can say like, are we changing the culture? 100% says yes, we are. There is no measurement. The measurement is when you see these changes in people, and that the way that they operate, that they're training more, that they're caring about their physical fitness, like you said, those things. And so as we're seeing those things, it's coming from somewhere, right? And we're noticing it in our newest firefighters. So that's telling me that it's coming from training. And so that's where this kind of plays together. And the timing couldn't have been better. You mentioned it. New chief, new procedures and guidelines. We're going to do things a little different. And oftentimes, like we just said, change is hard. Change, people don't like it. And so you got to get on board, and the opportunity was there. The opportunity was there for us to implement something and, kind of take the lead on it. And that's what we did. And it's not perfect. I mean, we're still stumbling along the way, but, if we keep working at it and we keep, pushing the boundaries and pushing to be above the minimum standard, I think the result's gonna be.
And I think that's all we're trying to do there at training is be above the minimum, right? Be above the minimum. I mean, you're not going to be, let's face it, like you're not going to be able to influence everybody to be great. You're not going to be able to get everybody to work out and bust their ass on their off time and, study and do training videos and seek out classes or certifications to make themselves better. That's just not going to happen. But if we can influence a few people to become that, and then influence the rest to just raise their own expectations and their own standards a little bit, then that's when we're really going to see a difference.
I think with the new classes, we're slowly planting seeds, and they're going to come out. And I was going to ask you, Chief, about this new class, because that's my first official from inception. That 40, I think it's the 45th. I had them from day one. They were mine.
Yep.
And so I always say, those are mine, guys. Like the 44th, I got there late, but I had them from day one.
Yep.
And I feel like with what we're doing, we're planting seeds, and they're going to be all over the department. And people are going to be like, man, I hope the guys say in the field and women say, these cadets are coming out squared away. Like, man, they know a lot. We built props. We put them to confined space. We cut cars, things that we didn't do before.
There definitely is more emphasis on the fire. You know, there's a lot of emphasis on being medics, you know, and that's important. It's what they do, right? So, you know, I think a lot of the focus, maybe before you guys were there, was a lot of the focus. I don't know for sure, but it was on that, making sure they got their paramedic, which, you know, of course they have to.
There's no doubt about that.
But putting some focus and it's not taking focus away from paramedics, it's just also adding the focus on fire, because I used to tell, we used to have, you know, a 623 in my station. And I was like, you know, last time, you know, line of duty deaths, 100 a year. None of them died on an EMS call, just, you know, in the back of an ambulance, you know.
Right.
They die at structure fires, right?
Yeah.
And so, not all of them, but, you know, a majority of them, some of them. So it's like, you want to be good. What is, you know, your closing line on your email for years, you know? I don't want to misspeak it, but it's something along the lines of train, like this job could kill you.
You can't change too much for a job that can kill you.
Because it can, right? And so it's like, we have to have some emphasis on, you can get some people seriously injured, hurt, killed, you know, on the fire scene, you know. So putting some emphasis on that was long needed. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I don't take credit for it, B Shift started it, you know, every probationary firefighter that comes out and like their first couple shifts, and we had, of course, had a rainstorm, like our first group that came out on our shift, but they have them stretching lines, and they actually go take them all to the same place. Hey, you're going to stretch a line, whatever. The class before, there was some difficulty with that. To my knowledge, the ones we've done, every station that I've had a crew with, I said, we're going to stretch it. We actually put a multi-company drill together with several of them. And then I haven't heard from B Shift as far as that nobody's had an issue pulling lines, which I know we say, like, okay, that should be a standard skill, but you'd be surprised. You know, we put them in their gear, put them on air. This is what you're going to do.
Add a little stress.
And you add some stress, some heat too. It's been hot. And, you know, they've all excelled. That's got to be, I mean, that's already getting better. So, and that's just one skill, right? You guys went through all kinds of skills. So I think over time it'll show more and more, like you mentioned before, maybe that'll put something on the other firefighters, the more senior firefighters. It's like, man, they're squared away. I need to step it up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We tell these guys, when you go out, if it's not the captain, go find the leader of that group and you pick their brain. Ask questions. If the captain's there, knock on the door. Hey, I got a lot of questions for you. I said, pick their brains, and maybe he'll say, talk to the driver. I mean, this can be your mentor, but find somebody. I said, you start talking about the truck and what's this tool and what does this do? And guys start, well, you know, you make them uncomfortable. You know, it's not to embarrass them, but if you're signing that truck, you should know everything about that, every single piece of equipment in that truck. You know how it is. You know, some guys just, Capt didn't talk to me during this. You go and you tell them, I want to talk. What are my expectations for today? I had a whole list of things when I talked to the new guys, but if you get that quiet, introverted officer pick their brain. I said, when you guys run the box, go to your box, check it out. Then you go to the engine company and you go check off the engine too, because you maybe ask for a tool. You get with that driver, what's this for? If you don't know, ask them. And maybe they don't know. You know what? I'm gonna look it up though, and that'll kind of help the driver. I haven't pulled the Pro Pack off in a while, but I'm gonna go see what it's about. You know, I said, please don't show up and just sit there with your head down and wait for someone to talk to you, because I said, you got to go and start talking to these men and women to, you know, break the ice and you know, it just. Like we said, it's going to start at training. We're going to plant those seeds, and they're going to be like, man, these cadets, these new guys won't shut up. They have so many questions.
Well, excuse me. And the thing about it is, too, I think people realize what our intentions are. I think, you know, there was a comment made. It's like during the standard operational guidelines that we were implementing, and, you know, me and Homer and yourself are up there, and people are like, man, that's a lot of testosterone up there. You know, like, hell yeah, it is, you know, but I think people also understand that, man, we genuinely care. The captains that you have there, we're not just there for the training division. And that's something I felt like, or we're not just there for the cadets. I felt for so long, the training division was specifically to get the cadets graduated and not really emphasizing on training our firefighters. And shit, me and Homer are all about that. You know, we're all about that. Getting guys prepared, getting guys ready, getting guys in shape, you know, passing off the knowledge. and we're super approachable. We may not seem like it, but we're super approachable. I mean, somebody calls us and we're on it. We're trying to really let everybody know we just want to make this department better, because our families, when we're at work, are being taken care of by our department, and we're not on the trucks anymore. And so, we want to do our best to make sure that whoever does respond is on top of their game, because it could be, our friends or our family that is in need of help during that emergency. And so it is our obligation to the department and to our community to, educate and try to raise the bar
For sure.
for our entire department.
I was still in the trucks, and there was a call with a rescue in a 2-story house, and I should have been there, but I was in a class, and I should have been in that fire, and I got a message that said, "I wish you were here. The outcome may have been different." And I felt like, to me, that wasn't a compliment. To me, that was like, it shouldn't matter who showed up at that particular fire. It should have been handled properly. And when I got that message, and then I got a phone call, like, hey, man, like, I know it would have been different. I'm like, man, we need, as a department, we need to be better and be different and not rely solely on, the crews
Certain
that
people.
Right. And so it was like, oh man, that's a compliment. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not a compliment. I didn't take it like that, know. And so it shouldn't matter who shows up on scene. This should be our standard here. Not, I wish that crew was there, or this crew would have done it better. No, like when they show up, no one knows who. The city don't know who we are.
Yeah.
Just there's firefighters. They expect the same.
The highest level. Yeah.
Well, brother, I appreciate you stopping by, man. I know you got a busy schedule, and
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, we wanted to bring you in. I've been wanting to do it for some time now, but I felt it was a good time to do it now. But we always like to leave in closing with any words that you might have, any thanks or any shout outs or any encouragement that you might want to give out there to anybody that's listening.
Yeah. I have a lot to say, but I do want to personally thank just our brothers and sisters in the field. They have been a big help, because, before we got there, I think with us being there, and we have credibility. Not that it wasn't there before, but I was in the field for 19 years before I got there. You were in the field for how long before
17.
you came? 17. So we have the experience, the calls. You were in the box. I rode the box for 11 years. So we come with that credibility, and when we teach classes, I've been there, and we can talk about a fire, and I hear the guy say, "I was there, Captain. I remember that." And so I just want to give a shout out to our, CCFD and the training. I mean, Chief, you guys have. We've called you guys the field, and people are. I've gotten emails from people that I would have never thought, hey, we want to help out too. We heard you're calling people. Why haven't you called us, man? What's up, Captain? You got a problem with me? I'm like, no, man, I just didn't know you were interested.
Yeah,
and it makes me feel good when our own guys are saying, call me. I want to go help. And man, so I just want to, thank everybody, of course, but we're changing the culture. We're training. There's a new regime now, the training division. And I want to thank my brothers and sisters for supporting us, because we couldn't do it. It's not just us.
Absolutely.
There's 3 captains there. We have 2 firefighter, 2 EMS. We have a training chief, but we have an entire department that has our back. So thank y'all.
Awesome, brother. Well, T, you got anything?
I think the big change that's gonna make a big difference is people would always say it before, was that training just focused on like the cadets, but now that you guys are opening up the door to the department, and they know that you can use you as a resource, right? If you see something, because oftentimes we see something on YouTube or whatever, hey, have you guys seen this? And then you can research it, try it with the cadets, dude. Yeah, that's a good idea, or no, that'll never work because of whatever. Like, once they figure out, and I've put the word out, like, call training, email those guys, see if they mess with this certain type of load, hotel pack or whatever it is. And once that starts, where training is training the firefighters, not just cadets, it's gonna completely change the game.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be there, man. I'm excited to take part in what Homer really started there. And we got big things coming for our department. We're on the up and up, and I'm excited for what the future brings. So, for everybody listening out there, keep it up. Keep up the hard work. If you're one of our personnel, it's not unnoticed. We appreciate y'all's support, and everybody else out there that's listening to the podcast and chiming in. Appreciate the love. we're gonna keep bringing these episodes. We got a couple more guests lined up in the near future. So till next time, thank you guys. God bless, and don't forget, charge that line.
God bless y'all. Thank you.